Good afternoon. It's Monday. Hi, everybody. I'm in the studio here, plugging away on some stuff. I posted today's page earlier on, and yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm in a good place, and we're getting some stuff done, which is always great. I've got I'm still getting one pages done as well as commission work, and that's good. And in addition to that, planning some things in the fall. Like I'm trying to get guests for the comic convention here in London. And is this on? Okay, I'm just making sure my sound was coming through. In addition to that, I'm trying to get some other things lined up. Got a conference coming up soon, and then a chalk event, and I'll show you how that goes. I'll take pictures and videos and stuff like that and post those. Little recap on that. In addition to these things, I'm really enjoying just working on stuff in the studio and allowing myself to stretch out and to engage in ways and to engage with things that I haven't been doing for a while. We get away from it's not so much that we get away from a routine, or we get away from the way that we used to do things or anything like that. It's more so that we organically grow and shift and go in different directions over time. And but with Lori's support and some of the opportunities that have come up, we're getting some things done in here. So that's nice to have going on. Hi, Mariah. Welcome aboard. Hey, I caught your show today. I just missed it. So that was a great episode of PM Artist Studio. Anyway, gets a chance that watches this, please go and check out what Mariah and Patricia get up to. And I learned a lot from them. They're fantastic educators and inspiring people. So here's some of the things that I've been doing. And this actually directly relates to that you talked about me the other day. Uh-oh. Oh, that was good. These are some of, now, P&M had a thing where there were postcards, a postcard challenge that was going on. And so I produced a bunch of postcards for that. And so now this stack of postcards that I have is about, I don't know how deep it is now, but I've still got all of these surfaces from jelly plating and printing over top of those, and acrylic splashing and things like that, and brayer offs, and all kinds of business. Like this is some old signage that I'm using, and just making messes on surfaces in order to have some interesting surfaces to work on. And so these are what I'm using. Oops, I haven't even got that camera on. What a turkey. So here is the surfaces that I'm referring to, where they're jelly plating and brayer offs and things like that, and destabilized images and inked up, painted up, scribbled up, doo-dah, doo-dah. So I've got a big stack of those, and so that, they're all coming together. But what I've been doing with those is studies for these commissions that I'm working on. Hold on, I'm sorry. I've got it pointed away from my face. Is this better? It should be. I think I had it pointed away from me. Just wait to see if anybody says it's better. Okay, well, better. Thank you. So yeah, sorry, I had it pointing outwards. I apologize. Thank you. So this is what I'm doing with these. Are these little studies, and these acrylic things. This is some of the things that I use for today's page, and just doing different studies of landscapes and environments for a series that I'm working on right now. Specifically these, which is so to my left on my new mounted, I built a wall mounted easel in the studio that's 8 by, no, I'm so sorry, it's 6 by 6. And I've got a large piece of paper that I've put together out of jelly plated surfaces. And I'll show you what I'm referring to. This is the second one that I haven't started working on yet. And but it's a bunch of jelly plated pages that I have been affixing together with tape and with medium, and I'm doing some stitching in there. And so the other one is mounted on the wall already, that I'm working on the actual image of it. And that's what all these studies started from. So that's where you're seeing these mountain ranges. And hopefully that's a little easier to see that way. And there's a whole load of those, just playing, different mediums. Oops, that's upside down, if you can believe it. So, all of these are different materials together, different mark making tools together. That's ballpoint pen and a white China marker with a little bit of acrylic. I think it's a Posca. And, there's some acrylic paint on that on top of a printed image from a stencil. And just trying different things and exploring. Upside down. Wow. Not that it really matters, but just these different things to try and figure out some approaches that I can take towards the work, and trying to get a nice little handle on landscapes, which I've never really spent time doing before. So all these little tidbits and fiddly bits. This one's fun. I've got a stamped square in here for no reason, and some watercolor wash, and then just drew over top of it with the white China marker and a pen. Yeah, sometimes it's fun to try different things and to use different approaches, and to see what that gives you. There's an example where you can really see the stenciling in the background and the printing in the background come through. So yeah, so these are fun. This is a series of maps that I did that now I'm painting clouds over top of. just because I can, just because. Oh, there's one more. So yeah, so these are fun, and I've got a stack more of those to work on. So portal. Mariah says portal. What does portal mean? So yeah, so we've got I dragged up some paper that I've got kicking around. Some look at this look at that texture on there. It's called corduroy, and so it has, oh, you can't see it, it has like a corduroy pattern through it, and in the sense of what's that called? My brain wants to say segmented, and that's not what it is. Corrugated. It's corrugated, the surface. That's what it is. Hi, Linda. How you doing? Welcome aboard. The blue square could be a portal. Oh, Mariah, that's fun. I like that. So I've got all kinds more things that I'm going to be doing things on, and I'll show you over time. There's a couple more, but that I've done for this series of studies and stuff, but I gave them away yesterday, so I didn't really do anything with them. So I've got some different pieces of paper to work on. This is a really interesting texturous. There's a slight corrugation on this as well. And if you look at cardboard, it's two sheets of outer skin, and inside is this pattern like this that touches both pieces of paper alternately, and in a beveled way. That's corrugated paper, and the reason that works for us, cardboard works for us, is that it's stronger than if you just put really thick amounts of paper. That's cost prohibitive. It costs too much to make that. But and it's too it's very weak if you use just a couple of sheets. So, but if you take interior sheets and you corrugate them through the exterior layers, that's what makes it stronger. That's why we have cardboard. So, yeah. Okay, so I've got some paper laid out, and I just thought I'd do a larger thing and knock some stuff off my desk. So I got all these brushes kicking around, and I almost knocked them on the floor. So yeah, so I've got thoughts about what we can do. Now, I pulled this up. I think it was on Friday. This is what I've looked at, these thumbnails like this, in order to do the things that I've just shown you on cardstock. Because the initial suggestion from this series commission is these three images, and so you can see how a lot of it is just little segmented parts of this and the rocks, But I've been looking to this for different outdoor environments, and the reason I use resource images that are this small is that it forces me to have to think more and to rely less on the images that I'm using. So what I thought might be of interest is, I'll just leave this, well, I can't sit it there because it'll slide down. There we go. So it's just over here. And I'll just pick random things out of that, and we'll do some panels and start trying to figure out, I don't know, some kind of story structure if it comes to mind for people. But there's a whole bunch of different interesting elements. Like, I don't know entirely what this is. I think it's a mountainscape. I think it might be what initially inspired this panel. And that I thought, oh, that's fun. That might be something interesting to take another approach at, because I really like that texturous pattern of the plating that happens, the sort of epoch plating. When you see a mountain range and you see all these striped lines going on, well, that's compression, right? That's compression over time, where layers of stone and rock compact, and different parts of minerals and stuff like that makes us see all these lines. So boring today. So that's what that is. And when you see it on weird angles, it's because it's tectonic, how it was put there, which means there was some sort of geodesic upheaval that tilted its axis. And so now it's on this weird, the line's going a weird direction. I love stuff like that. So yeah, so maybe we'll look at stuff like that. This is interesting, this blue kind of mountain in the middle. And yeah, I know it's really small and almost imperceptible, but that's kind of the point. It forces us to take suggestions from shape language that we see in this smaller level, and to try to interpolate that into something more, something larger, and that's more serviceable for what we want to do. So if I see something like this, and I'll tell you what, I'll leave this here, okay, and we'll do some scribbling here, if that helps to see what Christopher is yakking about now. So this is just a gray piece of pencil, and I'm going to put it in this Faber-Castell holder. Yeah, that's a tiny little black pencil. Somebody was giggling about how small some of these pencils that I use are. I'm cheap. So, okay, so this, and then we'll just do compositions that overlap with one another, collapse into one another. I'm not too concerned about that. I have a cutting board that I can, section these down into the postcard format. If it's a benefit, I mean, we can even take, let me see if I got a thick one here. There's a couple of really thick pieces of cardstock that I've been using. All right, so I'll just take this and lay it over top. And so we know that's the size of roughly what we're working from. And, so we'll get a couple, we'll get 4 of them out of this piece of paper and so forth. So I'm interested in what people are working on. If you want to talk about what you got going on right now, that's great. Looking at that, right? yeah, I'm keen to, as a jelly bean, to find out what people are doing, and if people have got projects they want to talk about, let's hear them. And I think it's important that people encourage one another, support one another. So if anybody wants to talk about their current projects, by all means, please feel like this is a free space to do that, because it is. All right, so here's this bush, moves into here. Here's our horizon line, and then we've got these separated elements, these little round hill forms that a lot of them in North America are generally made up from deposits of ice, of glaciers moving by in the northern part of it anyways. But you get a feeling that I liked geography when I was a kid. So there's our shape, there's our form, there's our language. Let's stop fussing about with this and go right into a ballpoint pen. Now I haven't put you can see some steeple shapes roughly in there. Those are like trees, so we'll figure that out as we go. But I'm coming in with let's make sure you work. It works. So I'm just gonna come in and hit some little marks, some spots, and we'll play with populating our image here in a second. And then I'm starting with this ballpoint pen, and I know that these lines are a little bit scattershot and reductive, but the whole notion behind that is that I'm not being too particular. I'm not focusing overly much on specific elements. I'm just getting, little Cole's notes of the composition together. And these are working like guidelines or touch points along the way from this random little image. And we're going to throw it over there and get it out of our face and work from our imaginations and think about, what time we've spent with this tiny image, and then think about the time we spent with whatever, nature that we've spent some time with in the real world. Because I think that, and correct me if you think it's wrong, but I really feel like the people that they're studying what you see in front of you, they're studying from source imagery like photographs or magazines, whatever. And then there's looking back in your own imagination and your own memory and applying what lives in there onto the paper. And so is it exact and perfect? No, probably not. Unless it's something that through repetition, you're going to have a really clear view, understanding of what, all the different elements of this object or this subject. But again, even that is still filtered through your own perception, your own lens of how you understand that things work. So it's sort of a fun thing to just let go. Okay, so that guy's off. He's over there, and away we go. So I thought, similar to these ones, because this was a fun process, this is a really textured paper. Does it pick up? Yeah, you see how textured that paper is. I'm stamping original on the back of everything. I don't know why. Because I have a stamp that has original on it, and I thought I'd use it. So I'm going to take this kind of an approach. Okay, so we're going to be using positive and negative. Now I think I put blue ballpoint in here as well. There's some masking tape in there. I'll do that same thing. We'll monkey around with our surface in here as well, just because. And just because it's additional complexity, largely unnecessary, that gives a little something more to the process. Now I'll move all these pages. I'll tape you in here, and I'll pin all these under there. There we go. So so I'm not constantly trying to juggle where the page is. Okay, so we've got, there's our surface, there's our composition that we've got laid out. I'll grab some tape, painter's tape, masking tape, what do we call it? Whatever you feel comfortable calling it, that's what we'll call it. So some of the other pages that I've done the last week are from jelly plated surfaces as well, you know, and we're using things like this. We're using these happy accidents that, you know, when you look at it for a second, can suggest a scene in and of itself. There's a horizon line, there's the smudge that I turn into trees, there's, you know, shot of a hill. So we're using those opportunities, and at the same time carving out of them. This green is still here and here, but in this case I squared around it so that I could turn it into the chalkboard that he's writing on here. You know, I tried to imply this border for this panel by having this line of the information cutting off around the same height as where this line is and this line. And it works along with that where the orange drops off. So it's using things like that. That's why I like monkeying around with surfaces. That's why I like putting tape in. That's why I like scribbling on stuff, or, you know, splotching paint on something, because I'm really not too particular about, you know, oh, what if that makes a mistake on it? What if that messes it up? No such animal. No such animal. It becomes more interesting for us to have to utilize that, to have to work with this piece of tape and this random piece of tape that cuts over the two images. I like those. I like those opportunities. I'm going to call them opportunities. Now, we started scribbling with this gray pen, and I'm kind of good with putting some more of those lines in here, right? And we'll have to figure out how to work those in, but it's just one extra little bit of Chris's chaos that may well work for us. All right, I'm going to start from the back and come forward. So we know that this hill was valued right out. It was very grayed out on the source image. I'm using a really old pen. So I'm going to really lightly put these surfaces in. I'm not, and then I'm going to come in again with this one. So here's where you'll start to see the corrugated surface, and I'll pull in on this. If I can figure out how to make it pick up my fingers. There we go. All right, so here's our surface area, right? And let me get all of it in. It's a fussy machine. There we go. That's good. Okay, so as I go, hopefully you can see how this pattern is kicking through now. You can see this repetitive line aspect, and that's because that's the corrugated surface that peaks and valleys, right? So the ink is only touching the peaks. I'm gonna take my glasses off because they're irritating me. So on a side note that doesn't really matter to anybody else, I got a really good bill of health today, which I'm very pleased about. It's been interesting lately. Also, my doctor's retiring. So go out on a good note, anyways. Yeah. I had a great doctor. I've had a great doctor for 31 years. But I don't blame her. Time to retire. 31 years of people coughing and hacking and wheezing. All right, so I'm lightly coming in with some cross hatching, some mark making for this hill area in the back. Okay, now this is our tree. If you remember the original image that we looked at, that was an evergreen. What kind of evergreen, Chris? A green one. So, is there a difference between evergreen trees? There probably is. I'm a bad Canadian that I don't know that. We got lots of them here. So just putting these little cross marks in here, just to bring up that value, and then I'm going to come in a little bit more down towards this end to hopefully separate this out from that a little more clearly. So we'll deepen it up as we go across. Make sure I'm not missing stuff. Everybody's saying hi. There we go. So now I'm coming in with this area here, which is again even a little more opaque, but it's still a lot of gray tone. I tend to turn the pen on a 35-degree angle, I guess, and when I'm working, and it's so what's happening is that I'm using ink comes out of ballpoint pens equally. Okay, so if you've got the tip of your pen is a ball, and around that ball is where the ink comes out, because of the rolling of the ball surface, it applies that to the surface of the paper. But it comes around equally all around that really well fit ball on the tip of the pen. If you're using one side of it, if you've got it on an angle and you're using it predominantly, sometimes when you find that you get those crazy smudges of ink out of your pen randomly, it's because it's dolloping up on the other side because it's not equally being transferred to the surface. So I find it helpful to have a piece of paper, something around, and you just roll it out. And so every now and then you'll see this little black dot, and that's probably the dollop coming off. So I also use the back of my hand, which is a bad practice that I'm trying to get out of doing. So there's our third hill. Now I'm going to fidget with this a little bit more, and we're still going to add in some little punches of darker value to separate our surface planes, and we're going to use some punches of negative value, some light white little, really tiny silhouetting and stuff like that. Hiya, Liz, welcome aboard. So there's our third hill now, and then here's our fourth, and this one is far deeper in value, but I'm not going to use full on really heavy blacks for this, even though that there was a very deep value in that little reference image that we used. And the reason I'm not going to is because when we do those hits of the dark black in the evergreen trees here in the foreground, and some of what's happening here, the more that we can push the background back with a lessening of value, the more that it sells the deeper value in the foregrounds coming at us. It separates the two different planes. Big problem with trying to do a piece that has a flat and empty water area of still value, still water, is that it often just looks like you're either missing something, or it makes somebody look like they're standing, or the objects are sitting on this area that's on the same plane, so that there is no foreground, midground, background. So we want to switch that up a little bit. One thing that really helps is overlap. And so the reason I like that little resource picture that we saw was entirely because of these two evergreen trees. Because while it's a very simplistic visualization that we're putting into place here of these little you know, layers and layers of triangles for the evergreens. What it's doing for us is it's separating. We know now that this is in front of this. And if this, which is also places it in context from this to this, little things like leaving this overlap gap here to here, having this blend in behind the other, now makes this sit in front of this, which tells us this is in front of that, in front of that. So it's, I think you know what I'm getting. I copied your mountain and river composition for my collage. Oh, that's very cool. I wouldn't mind seeing that. So yeah, so this is filling in the rest of this area. I'm not too overly concerned about, because these are just sketch cards. So I'm not too overly concerned about everything being perfect right to the edges or absolutely delineated out. I'll do little things like leaving a whole section of it out, or whatever other random ideas hit me at the moment. If it feels like I don't have to go all the way out to the edge, I won't in places. Just because. Okay, so there's our third plane. I guess it's a fourth, actually. Sorry. So there's that. So since we've got this idea of where we're going to have a little bit of fun here too. So I'm doing the same thing, really light application, but I'm doing the same thing here that we talked about here. And that is having this little eddy of water, as a boat is passed or whatever it is, this sort of little bit that's sticking out. And it's going to go behind the bush in the foreground. I hope that makes sense. I'll get my big head out of the way. I'm so sorry I did that again. You don't need to see me. Okay, sorry about that. I probably slid it over. There we are. So, okay, so here we are now. We've got this solid in place here. We've done some of this scribbling for this section. We've got these different 1, 2, 3, 4, different tonal values. And we're going to push that even further when we apply some white China marker. And just for whoever was giggling yesterday about the size of how small I'll draw on a tool till, there's the one China marker that I'm finishing off. Hey, it's not as it's at least it's short, not as short as the other one there, that black pencil. The China marker is even more ridiculous. Okay, so we know that this is a central column that is where we place the line to sort of tell ourselves that that's where our evergreen was going to go. So we're just going to come through and apply that in, start building our tree down from the top. So some people do this when they're doing that. They do this sort of triangular pattern. And I think that if you look at it like more like a this kind of a thing, where those triangles really don't, they tip and they bend about and they weave about, and sometimes you've got a piece that just jets out too far. Nature's imperfect, so trees don't look like that. They look more like that. So we're just going to put this guy in here. So the intention is, now I've not built it up too deeply. I tend to start light and work dark. But the idea is that this is going to stand out even more than that, so you get the idea that it's closer to you. Linda says, you're working it down to the nub. I have a container. It's a jar that's full of nothing but pencil stubs. And here are, I'll show you this. This is some of the mark making tools that I'll keep in a pocket. And they're all just short pencils and China markers. And this is a solid lead. And I'll keep these in a pocket just for scribbling on the fly. Now I have to put all this back down the surface. Um, you know, and it's great. They fit in your pocket easier. They're, you know, they're handy dandy accessible. But yeah, they're crazy, silly, small. They look even smaller with these baboon hands. Okay, so I'm putting this tree in the foreground. Now I don't want, and this is called a tangent, I don't want a triangle to end here along the line of the horizon. I want to make sure that it pushes through there, okay? And the reason for that is otherwise you read that line right across and it disrupts this. And it doesn't allow this to sit over top. So you have to push those and make sure that your lines for objects that are in front of others sit out and ahead from them. That's why this is lower than that. This line tucks in behind there. And you know where this line tucks in, again, it's irregular. It's not just this sort of, you know, they meet up like that in the middle. And then there's a horizon below. You can, when people do that, it takes you out of it. So you can start to notice those things when you start applying those yourself and you consider those a little more. So, okay, so I'm putting more weight on this side of the tree and just, so this is a Papermate 1.0, I think it's a millimeter, M, whatever M is. Regular old Papermate pen. Working it down, oh, they're perfect for travel, yeah. You make it look so easy, so I tried adding lines like you do on a mountain. Mine were a big fail. Well, I mean, was it your first time adding lines on the side of a mountain? Give yourself the opportunity to make what I call some learning mistakes before you worry too much about the fact you've made them at all. It's you know, it's tricky. It's trying to figure out how to interpret things. We gotta try a whole bunch of different mechanisms in order to make those things happen for ourselves. So don't. It probably is something that you look at and go, "Hey, okay, that might not have worked the way I wanted it to, but I learned these things from that," and that's ideal. Allow yourself that too, to learn those different things. Have some takeaway. So I'm contorting this tree a little bit, moving him over as though he's leaning more towards the other, just to break up the directions of these lines and to tilt this back into the composition. So now the viewer's eye should move up and down like so. Back into the center, back into the center. So it's like drawing the eye back into the central part of the composition. And then this moves it up in the air, back and down, up in there. It's a weird thing. Nature does that for us. I figure one day, at least now I know lines go. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I'm putting more of these lines in here for denoting our hillside here. And then down in the foreground, I believe there was a bush or something. But before that, let's get this deciduous tree or some kind of bush in the foreground as well. So I'm really just worrying about the outside edge. I'll start coming in a moment and I'll start bringing this together. So I'm going to put a little more defining marks in here. Have those running behind foreground elements. Okay, and we'll do this again here. So we keep that sense of movement, the organic sense of movement going throughout. And it's not just defined by hiding behind a tree. Okay, so we put a couple of silly marks in. So let's start to use those bare bones, and start to apply little rough shapes to denote the leaves or whatever it is. You know, maybe they're little buds for spring, but we're making our imaginary bush as we remember a bush. So I'm just following this sort of really loose and rough skeleton that I put into place here with some of these little hash marks that I put down. And I'm using those to try to understand, to try to find the form of this, this bush. And then we're going to play with this again in a second. We're going to come in with some white, and I'm going to try to pull some white through these spaces here in order to separate the two a little bit more. Similar to like, so in this tree, which is very similar, do you see, so there's a blue undersurface. In this case, we have this tan undersurface. Now, when I put the black marks down along the skeleton of the small tree, and these little things that are meant to emulate leaves or imply that there's leaves there. So then I put white, little hatches of white in there to really distinctly separate the two to two planes, and not let the it just be that flat aspect to it. Try to simulate light coming through. Oh, let's see. Okay, so that's just some of these marks, and a couple just a little trunk lines that go back to the ground itself, and then we're going to put some grasses and things at the base of it. So, but we want to have a little bit of area so that we can do those little white punches I was just talking about. Right? Right, Chris. That sounds like a great idea. Oh, okay. Thank you. I think you're talking voice in my head. So everybody has different subject matter. Everybody has different techniques that they like to use. I really think that there's no right or wrong way to go about things, unless it's running anathema to the thing that you know works for you. But otherwise, I know some people say, this is the proper way to draw this. It's however the putting marks down works for you. You know, there are certain processes, chemical processes or application processes that are really kind of tied into how the medium works. So there are instances like that, but drawing, now it's the marks you put down and the way you're going to put them down. And the way that you're going to put them down is going to make that drawing uniquely your own, because it's not the way the person beside you is going to do it. So, okay, so we're down here along the whole side of this hill, and so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to continue this shape language over here of this greenery space and explore it as though it's its own little combined patchy area of grass that sits, so that when we come through in a second and I'm going to put a value a little deeper than this throughout the rest of it, this punches through this dark patch of bushes and whatnot. We're going to put a little bit more of that throughout the hill. Now, I don't remember what that looked like on the thumbnail we looked at. That doesn't matter. So, because we're exploring, we're playing and looking for the interesting lines and shapes and interpretation of this from our own head at this point. So there's a piece of masking tape here. The other piece of masking tape goes half under that hill. And then this masking tape runs right over into the next area for drawing. Okay, so let's start to come through here. Now, what I'm going to do while I'm doing this is I'm going to start to find the form of the bush that's in our foreground by silhouetting it out from our background. So as we're putting in our hash marks, our deeper gray black value that's in our foreground here, just to add one more element of interesting complexity, we're going to pull this, have this run in contrast somewhat to the environment behind it to, again, just distinctly separate it from that plane. So one of the ways to start to getting a handle, if you're sort of figuring out what I talk about when I talk about planes within a drawing, one thing that can help is take different kinds of construction paper, and tear off an inch or whatever, and overlap those, right? And then try to, and you can further serrate those, you can further tear those down into interesting shapes that sort of emulate, nature, and try to figure out what is more compelling when you're overlaying those things together. It can really start to help one understand how to make things real, how to make the reader realize that this thing is in front of that thing, etc., etc. I lost my slipper. That's right. I'm at the age where I'm wearing slippers in the house. I said that to my endocrinologist this morning, and she says, "Well, that's the way it always is, and no matter what the age of my house," because she's Asian. That's funny. Chris speaks without thinking a lot. So I'm again leaving out the tops of this bush, and we'll come back in with that in just a moment. We're going to pull these lines down here, and then in comes this soldier. We'll see what we can do with that. Is there any other? I don't mind using whatever else today while we're playing with some of these little landscapes, and I hope people don't mind that I'm, putting together some landscape stuff and doing some of these studies, and as opposed to just directly drawing a one-page story in a traditional fashion. I mean, the landscapes that I sat down and scribbled out this morning with paint, those forest images, well, there's a story in that too. Notice that I don't credit anybody for the suggestion today, and it's because that's just some thoughts that were randomly in my head. So, which I do as well. But if you've got story ideas you want to suggest, three words, one single sentence of dialogue, you know what I mean? Like whatever random, just don't give me a script. I don't want to draw. So I've got an idea for a one-page story. Here's a 63-page treatise on the Napoleonic Wars. What do you think? You want to do a one-page story of that? Whoa. That's a lot of reading it. I don't have that many eyes for reading that many words. Keep making those lines, Liz. You'll find your way. Hey, great advice, Linda. Okay, so I'm just going to put in a couple more fun shapes. What are they? Shapes. Okay, so if this is a hedge in the foreground, I'm just going to suggest a little more depth to it by putting some little dark patches in to try to denote that it's not a just rock solid volume. There's perforations throughout of the shapes, but the between the branches of the trees and so forth. And then I'll play on that a little bit more as we go as well with the white. It's not dissimilar from, if you can interpret this volume in two different ways. You can put down all these shapes with your dark value, or it can start to pop those shapes in with your light value. It's like we've got some of it over here on the blue tape surface, but then it's white on the other side. Just to change it up, to shake up the shapes. This says, where were you when Gangman Style song hit airways? That song is stuck in my head. You know what song is stuck in mine? I'll just do the first 4 notes. See if anybody gets this. It goes, dun, 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 dun. That's it. That's, anyways. See if anybody gets what that song is. Where was I when Gangman first came out? Probably in, I don't know. I don't necessarily listen to pop radio. I listen to classic radio, but I don't think I saw some some video pictures of the Gangnam dancing on television, but that was kind of one of those things that my kids might like at the time. So, not for dead. Thanks everyone for the thumbs up. Does anybody need a hint for my 4 notes suggested songs that get stuck in my head? Because I can give you the first line from the song, and that's, it might sound crazy what I have to say. Anybody? Curious if anybody ever gets that. It's a silly clue that I just gave. It's just, I don't know if that's helpful at all. Give me better clues, Christopher. Okay, so this is structuring our little bush in the foreground. Now, I'm going to break up this shape from it just being a big ball, and we're assuming that people understand that the big ball is some kind of bush or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imply some of the skeleton of it, the mechanics of how this is put together, and get some of these darker lines in the lower areas. And we're going to do it on a similar angle to this diagonal that the hillside is, just so you can still understand that it's working in the same environment. Hopefully that makes sense, folks. No clue, Linda says. Unable to guess, says Liz. Crazy. One song made him world famous. Does art ever do that? Baron Story did a picture of Howard Hughes for Time magazine for their cover, where he's got the long scraggly beard, and it's a graphite, or it's an ink drawing of him with the long beard and the scraggly hair, and it's the first time Howard Hughes had been seen in years. So Baron Story gets this commission to do this illustration of him on the cover of Time, and that's really the biggest image that he's known for, outside of artsy-fartsy types that know him for his years of educating others, and his Marat de Sade journals, which is a really interesting book about shared letters between Marat, one of the heads of the French Revolution, which you can see in a painting by Jacques-Louis David called Death of Marat, and the Marquis de Sade, who was alive at a different time period. But I think that's a journal between these two people that are and their ideologies. It's interesting, anyways. Andy Warhol's most known for his Campbell soup pictures, right? Now he did more lithography process images, but it's those soup cans that most people know. The song is Happy. It's that I'm thinking of. It might sound crazy what I have to say. No more bad news. You can take a break. I'm like a hot air balloon. I can go to space. That's okay. I don't care, baby, anyways, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Happy. It just goes on forever. Okay, so there's the majority of our breakdowns. Now this goes right to the edge. This does not, because the idea is that this is our water area. So we've left that loose as far as it goes for the pen marks, but we know that we're going to put the white down next. So I like the white because it's got this graininess to it that I don't know how well it's going to pick up in the camera, but we're just pulling some different shapes and marks. And I'm going to come in a second with a Posca as well, which is going to be even more clear, hopefully, for everybody. But I'm just using this to do that mid value, that mid blend of the light color. And then I'm going to run that across the edge there. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Posca because I don't know that this is really necessarily able to be seen too much in the camera. So I got a big fat chunky one. Happy. Liz says, geez, I just had a gulp of coffee and you started singing. Sorry, I hope that didn't make you cry. Okay, so yeah, that song is pervasive. It just gets in your head. And I could listen to it for 3 hours and just have it be just in the background of whatever I'm doing. So I'm doing little white pops in here, and some of them are going to, so the fun thing about this is some of them go over the ballpoint and helps to give a sense of layered surface, because if we've got one value going over another, you know, and it's ostensibly erasing out the one beneath, then it starts to let our reader understand that there's maybe a little more depth to that, right? And then we're going to come through here and poke in between these branches here. And then I'm going to do the same thing around there. Mr. Dirty Fingers here. But by leaving some areas with the tan color, which I think you're starting to be able to see now, the difference between the two starts to give a different sense of separation for that background area. And by peeking little dots of white through in here, hopefully pulls this forward, pushes the water back. Just making sure I'm not missing stuff. So again, I'm going to come in, continue on this white section from in behind, but like in the how I did it with the blue one, you can see more distinctly how the blue works as an intermediate value. And where you put the white in here in these areas, that blue still holds tight to the black line, and it gives it just a less hard, you know, rigid white-black differentiation. You've got something in between, which I think looks prettier. That's right, prettier. That's the way I roll. So I'm going to come through here and run some white lines there to start to separate out. So now it breaks this apart a little bit, but it continues what's going on for us with the white lines as they come down. So now this line that disperses back into our background hopefully makes the eye move that way. And then just to give a little more distinct separation from the water from the environment behind, I'm just putting a thin little white line along the bottom to hopefully give a sense of more clear differentiation, of the planes. I don't know. Maybe that works to you. Maybe it doesn't. A blue wash would make it a night look, don't you think? I think so. Yeah. So I'm going to put a couple little interesting dots, maybe flowers, maybe not. Just little interesting bits, little bits and bobs. Some dandelions on the hill, maybe. Just interesting bits of complexity that doesn't just make this cross-hatch flat bit of business. All right, so I'm going to pull the tape here, and I'm going to just flatten this white here for the sky in the background, which ideally gives a little bit of separation from these hills from the sky. And then we can take one more line and run it through like so, just to push that last section back a little bit. So there's our first picture for today. I like the left, your little white lines and black lines make it come alive. Oh, thanks, Linda. I like the left corner bush. This one, yeah, it's fun. It's sort of, again, light, dark, light, in between, dark. You know, like we've got these different interactions between lighter areas and darker areas to separate one from the next. And, you know, hopefully that keeps the eye moving around. You know, that's the objective. So let's get this doodad back over here and turn this guy back on. And is there, let's see, what else do we see on this sucker that we want to pick something out of? Hey, let's do that one. Let's do this craggy mountain range. I'll put that up there, and I'll move this paper over like so, and then we'll do this craggy mountain range here, and put this in here. So I'm just gonna throw that in there. We're really gonna push it this time. Now, is it just keep going with pen? Does anybody want me to pick up something else, or is pen good? If pen's working for folks, I'll keep at it with the pen. Get that out of the way. Or if there's something else that you would suggest I use. I'm cool like that. All right, so we're just going to rough it in first. Now, this, I tried this last time. I hope it helps people. Let's see. So that is our image at hand. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I'm just going to, all right, so you see it now? There's the lower flat, more foreground mountains and trees, and then there's this big flat top mountain in behind. So that's what we're going to hash out. Yeah, if there's any specific medium that people want me to use on this one, just let me know. So this is same kind of thing as we had last time. I'm just going to now I've got happy stuck in my head. Has anybody put that on since I butchered that song? Has anybody put that on to listen to? Okay. here we go. So we've got our highway, or life, as Tom Cochrane calls it. He says life is a highway. So that's our highway. Okay. There's some hillsides coming off of that. Here's another one up here that moves off into, there's a fun angle right there, right? Redirects the eye from the edge of the card or the page. And then we've got a break here, and then we see our first interesting shapes there. We're going to try a little bit of hashing mountain shapes here. So there's our forest, I guess, and then we're going to come in with our mountains, and so that mountain range tends to come like so. And again, I'm just going to throw some rough light marks here, and then it's up to us to turn this sucker off and remember what these are doing. All right, that's good. So let's turn this off. Goodbye. I like watching young people reviewing old music. They do great surprise faces. This guy's name is Barry Manilow, and he sings songs about girls in casinos. That's what all of his music's about. There's a fun thing about composers listening to some rock music and realizing that there's deeper complexity in the writing of some of the music that's being embedded inside of rock music. Most specifically, prog rock. If you get a chance, listen to "Close to the Edge" by Yes, and but there are videos of people sitting there listening to "Close to the Edge," and you see their heads explode when they realize how intricate that music was, because you've got people that, with degrees in musical comprehension and the like. So I'm putting together a bunch of angled shapes. I'm trying to remember where that mountain was going as we put in our background areas, and we're going to do our thing again. We're going to chuck some white over top of this, but I'm just using different lines to keep the eye moving in different directions. So this implies there's planes moving this way, but then we can still put some hashes over top of that. What are we at? We're on now. We'll keep going quick here. See how much camera I've got left. And then as we get farther down, I'm going to tonally lighten it up. And the reason that I'm going to do that is to more distinctly separate it from the foresty foreground that's going to go in front of it. Foresty foreground, like that. I drive a Forester. I really do. Subaru Forester, and I drive it through sometimes I go and drive it through forests. Just because it's like sending it home. Oh, yeah. So this is the big flat plain that's on this hill, mountain. So we're just throwing some shapes together for this. And then we're going to do a break to show if we've got this angle of stone. Then we're going to move these lines this way. So hopefully it makes the reader's eye, sorry about the bouncing, think that this, and then it goes like this. Like we see this shift. of the, and then we'll do it one more time over here where we continue on some of these layers, these compression layers of different mineral values. Just a little bit, just enough to make somebody realize that there's shape changes going on. I got close to the edge of my head. That worked well. If I ever get one of those songs stuck in my head, just think of Crazy Complicated song. And it'll just take over. The bass player, Chris Squire from Yes, is the bass player that inspired Geddy Lee from Rush to play bass. John Denver, Rocky Mountain High. There you go. Yeah, he was a real outdoorsman, that John Denver. And then they see a video of him. Well, maybe not. Rocky Mountain High. Singing these songs about enjoying the nature and the world out there, and he kind of had to look at him like an accountant. It's interesting, you know, like when you see performers and they don't look anything like you think they would, and then you see others and they fit it perfectly. Like Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim looks exactly like he sounds, or he looked exactly like he sounds. Donovan, Mellow Yellow is my fave. There you go. Unfortunately, when they did that, when that margarine or butter, oh, it's butter, it's a butter company, licensed Donovan's Mellow Yellow to be the theme song during their commercial, I really think that tarnished that song. I think that felt like, you know, it disserviced it a little bit, because then so many people would think, just butter it, you know, after hearing it. That's disappointing. Dan McLean, I had this whole Donovan-esque looking hippie idea in my head of what that man might look like, and was, you know, the guy that sang American Pie, and you know, didn't quite meet up to it, you know. A little disappointing, that. So here's our mountain shapes coming together. In our background here. And then, what do we have for time? 1:13. So we're using our rough notes that we put down for where things go and how they come together. And we're using those. They haven't been for naught. I've got Mellow Yellow stuck in my head. Oh, music is so suggestive, isn't it? All right, now I'm going to start humming 25 or 624 just to really mess with people's heads. Forever Young Bob Dylan. There you go. But yeah, you want to picture Bob Dylan as the guy holding signs up in an alleyway. I'm in the basement thinking about the government, you know. Instead of the kind of creepy, greasy old guy who's going, Mama making ends of me. I can't use them anymore. Where he's doing that song, he's like in his 70s. Ugh, it's awkward. There's a singer, an Irish singer. Her name was Dolores O'Riordan. She was the lead singer of the band The Cranberries, and they did that song "Zombie," and in the 1990s. And I remember when I finally saw a video of the band singing it, she was exactly what I thought she would look like. This sort of punky, you know, somewhat, you know, gossamer-esque little pixie of a lady who's just mouth 3 feet wide open, just howling like a maniac. What's in your head? Yeah. You have to look up Zombie by the Cranberries to see what I'm referring to. Fortunately, she's passed away, but such is rock and roll. Yeah, I don't know if people remember Sinead O'Connor, another Irish singer. She was in a girl group before she became the big popular singer that she was, and she had hair, and it's hard if you grew up imagining her with no hair to sort of see that. Neil Diamond, Saturday Morning. There you go. Neil Diamond looks exactly like you think he's gonna look. He's the shirt open, the crazy hair, he fits it perfectly. Okay, so there's our mountain range coming in now, and just pulling down some of these values and giving some more interesting shapes and things in here, just to imply deeper areas, so it's not just like one flat uniform surface, right? So there's our mountain in the background, and then before that was, and I'm just going to do this for the time being, these are trees. This is the forest that's in front of that, just to start doing those little landmark lines, those little landmark pieces of data that say, I know that that's where that is. And then there was a plane across here. So one of the things, I'm just going to do this quick because I want my camera to run out of the juices. So this is a hillside that fit in the foreground, and it just turned up a little bit like that. And of course the mountain range, and I'll do some landmark lines so we know where that's going. And then there was this short receding line of trees that ran along here, and then we had these perspective lines drawing our eye back into the center of the composition, and then there was a line down the center of the road there. So there's the basic gist of how that's going to go together. But before I run out of camera, one of the things I wanted to show was, so this is where I'll take the China marker, and I use this honestly rather than a pencil crayon, just because of the level of granulation that I get. I like that. I like the granulation. And I'll start picking apart marks into there. Now this is all going to be darkened out, but not as much on the road. But you can start to get an idea of where things are going. And so even though we put these pieces of tape in here that relatively interfere with the composition, we just start to I just start to incorporate them in, so that as I continue on, they just become embedded in there. And those are the sort of things that we do, where somebody looks at that and goes, "You got tape in there? Is there tape in this part? Why'd you put tape there? Or is that painter's tape?" And we know, they might not know, but we know, because we're the cool kids at the back of the bus. So, and then again, once you start using something a little more opaque, like the Posca pen paint, it just roots that in even further, so that now you start realizing, but you get these beautiful high contrast elements that are just punched in there. And whether other people understand what it is that we're doing when they see these pieces, and or it bewilders them, however that is, it's fine. It's fine. We don't have to tell everybody all of our tricks. I don't have to tell everybody that I secretly hide rap lyrics in every one of my drawings. No, I don't. My rap consists of, my name is Chris. I like to say that I like rapping every day. Yeah, see, I don't rap. So yeah, so there's the rough shape breakdown of our page, and as we get closer to completion here, these little elements start coming together. Now I drew this in blue rather than black because I was going to throw that blue tape in. It's not the same blue, not by half. One of the things that I could do is take a little bit of cyan blue, ink in a jar, and do a little wash in here and pick and choose some of the little deeper areas that I want, so that when when you see the image, it just starts to really play with the value, but it also starts to unite this high contrast dark blue that's in there more into the image. So there's just putting a couple little dibs and dabs and pokes of white in our mountain range here. Just to keep it interesting, just again to add a little bit more complexity. So yeah, there we go. All right, so there's the one we got started. There's the one that we finished. Oops, what happened? There you go. So there's the two from today. This one we got completed. This one, we've got the whole structure of it in place there, and just a case of filling it out. And then I'll do two more down here, and I'll make a page out of these environments. So I hope some of the things that we talked about today are helpful for folks, or some kind of just something interesting in there for you. But play with the marks that you make, and play with, like I said earlier, if you take different colors of paper and make strips of them, and then start laying those strips over top of each other as though they're like hills or something, and then start seeing how things sit in front of one another. And then you can take like little wedges of like a dark green or something, and start planting those in those hills, and seeing how where the placement of those are in accordance with this hill over these environments, and how that makes the interplay between the two of them. And it'll really start helping people figure out how to do that, how to apply that themselves in their own drawing. So okay, folks, that's about it for me today. Thank you everybody for coming and hanging out. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be back and trying to do some streams on a regular basis. I said at the beginning of this, some of the things that are coming up, and so there's some interesting stuff in the immediate future with the channel, like the chalk drawing event and things like that. So thanks everybody for coming out and hanging out and taking part in the chat. Thank you very much to Linda, the moderator with the mostest, and I hope everybody has a good day. I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, at 2 p.m. EST. So I hope if you can make it, you come on out and hang out. If you got suggestions you want to throw at me or anything like that, please feel free to do so. And I hope to see you then. Bye for now, everybody. Go draw something.